Welcome back to the Pathfinders podcast. I'm your host, Pete SHRM. We're going to dive into the career journeys of great people with exciting paths. Our conversation aligns with the Pathfinders methodology and hits on some of those career maps of our guests. It's a representation of those career journeys, past, present, and future, broken out into different roles, skills, accomplishments, education, and more as we dive into the conversation. It's not just about one individual that helped us along the way, but more so, you've heard it up to this point, your personal board of advisors, a couple of different mentors that guided you. We might refer to this as the PBA, Personal Board of Advisors. All the podcasts will be shared on LinkedIn and posted, and then the other podcast platforms as well. Please share your comments and ideas and thoughts as you listen along to today's session. The quote favorite for our guest today: "You only get one chance at life. Make the most of it." John Oliverio, SPHR, SHRM SCP, is the VP of HR at Audia International, leading all HR functions for the global organization of more than 1,500 employees. With over 3 decades of HR experience, he's worked previously in leadership roles at TrueSense, GAI Consultants, Wesco, EDMC, and Nicholson Construction. If the HR work doesn't keep him busy enough, he's quite active in the community, and many of our PHRA listeners know this as well. He's an advisory board member for the Humane Animal Rescue of Pittsburgh. He's a board member of Tree Pittsburgh, and he's the Crafton Borough Council president for nearly 2 years. So without further ado, I'd like to invite a very special guest who, believe it or not, has been to 6 continents in his day. John, welcome to the stage.
Pleasure.
Great to see you. So, John, the way we start this off, same for every show on Pathfinders, is talk to us a little bit about, John from 25, 30 years ago, whenever you're, just figuring out what you wanted to do with your life, right, growing up. Where were you, and what was that aspiration as a child?
Absolutely. My original direction was I wanted to be a physical therapist. So that was my career goal through probably middle school. And then I was able to go to a job shadow day. My mom took me to, I think it was St. Clair Hospital, and I shadowed under a physical therapist. And at the end of that day, I knew I did not want to be a physical therapist. After that day, it was just not appealing to me and not an area that I thought I wanted to go into. So I then, when I turned 16, I joined Ames Department Store as a sporting goods associate and worked my way up there, and actually continued working there for all through high school and college and post-college, so a total of 9 years. And part of it was the HR regional office was located in the store I was in Bethel Park. So I actually spoke to the regional HR manager. He told me what human resources was, and I was extremely intrigued. And since then, I've been in HR, and that's been the degree and also the career path I've chosen. Based on that conversation.
Whenever you got into college, you said you were at the department store. What did you study in school? And it seems like it might have aligned with HR. You had a bit of an inkling that this might have been the calling. Did you have some classes around there that were helpful in your work and the work that you were doing professionally?
Absolutely. I took a degree from the University of Pittsburgh in psychology. They did not have, at the time, a human resources degree. So I looked and said, okay, I can do a psychology degree with an emphasis in business. And that's really where I focused. And there were human resources classes throughout. And I took a class by Audrey Morell, and she connected me to human resources. It was actually a summer class because I was so focused on it. I wanted no other distractions. So I took that class while I was working during one of my summers, and I'm still in touch with her today. And it's been pretty intriguing to see how it's grown since then. But that was my first official training in human resources besides my work at Ames Department Store.
Okay. Just a quick shout out to Dr. Audrey Morel. I just read another one of her articles on mentorship in the workplace, and I reference her work pretty often. So it's pretty cool how we know that this world of HR is not super duper large, and then the world of HR in the Pittsburgh market, and whenever it comes to leadership development and mentorship specifically, there's a couple of people out there that are fantastic to learn from. So pretty cool. We're able to give a shout out there. So at some point you left Ames because as I was reading the introduction, John, that department store isn't on, the last 30 years of experience. So at what point did you say, I think I need to spread my wings? I've, done my 9 years. What fed into that decision?
So the opportunity came up to move to the corporate office in Connecticut for Ames. They were located in Rocky Hill, and they said, the next step for your role is to move to Rocky Hill and take a corporate human resources position. And I went to Rocky Hill, I looked around, and it really didn't match my lifestyle. It was a very quiet community, and there was not a lot going on. It kind of shut down at around 6 or 7 at night. And it just didn't seem like a place that I would grow and enjoy being in. So I had to make the difficult decision to actually move into a different role or look for a different role. And at that point, it was, you looked more in the newspaper at that time for opportunities. And I made a tough choice to move out of there, and realizing that as part of my career, moving into a different company also gives you additional experience and different viewpoints to bring your skill set to those companies and then align them with your new company. So I made that decision to start looking and eventually leaving Ames.
Interesting. And so where did that take you? And did you think that it was a blend of running, well, not necessarily running from, but there's always the piece of, oh, I'm excited, I'm going to this. Was that draw stronger than the, where I've been is no longer for me, so I'm going to go from this? Not necessarily running one way or another, but there's always that little bit of magnetic field, if you will.
I really enjoyed Ames, and it was tough to leave because I had been there for so long, and that's what I knew. But I realized from a career perspective, I needed to gain more experience. And the path was into Rocky Hill, Connecticut. And ultimately, reflecting back, was a good choice that I didn't leave because the company eventually closed down. And my next step there was to Nicholson Construction. And I was there for 5 years. I started out as an HR administrator and quickly moved into the sole HR person. And that's during the involvement that I started to, a friend of mine, Michelle Ferris at the time, got me involved. Her name is Michelle Reese now, got me involved in the PHRA. And that was back in '96. And she says, there's this organization I think you really need to be a part of. It will really elevate your career and just life experiences. And I moved through Nicholson into the human resources manager role and joined the PHRA to actually take the certification class for, at the time, it was the PHR. And it's been history since that time.
So it was Nicole who made the PHRA connection, huh? Pretty cool. Michelle. Got it. And so as you're doing the transition from Ames, I have two questions for you here. We'll go one, two, John. A lot of folks have been in a position for, 5-10 years at an organization. They love it. How do you go about, if somebody comes into your office, how would I have that conversation with you where I have to be true to myself? What are some of the do's and don'ts whenever we get into that kind of a situation? Because hey, if it's not, me or somebody next to me that's doing this, we might know somebody that's getting ready to have it could be a difficult conversation, right? What goes into that?
And a better example was probably why I left Nicholson to go to my next role. One of my mentors through the PHRA, Linda Wilkes, came to me and said, John, I think I have an opportunity here with the company I'm working at. It's for my role. I'm moving into a more of a corporate role. And I really think that you'd be perfect for the position. And I said, I'm really happy here at Nicholson, and I do not want to leave. I do want to stay. I have long-term career path. And she says, I'm telling you that in order to grow in your career, if you want to be a vice president of HR, if you want to move along that path, this is the right opportunity for you, and you'll gain better experience with a larger company, more employees, and that's the path that you grow in HR. It was a really difficult decision for me to leave, and part of the do's and don'ts, whether I'm having that conversation or not, and I do that conversation now with my folks and with the other people that I mentor because of what Linda had told me, is things that if you do, or if you have aspirations to grow, the change is not a bad thing. It sometimes you can get stuck with what you're doing, and you can grow in your own role, taking on additional responsibility, which I've done through my career, taking on things like business insurances, office administration, or vehicle management, those kind of things. You can grow in your personal career, and there's nothing wrong with staying at an organization for your entire career. But I think that sometimes if you're looking for that next step and you may be blocked, there's nothing also wrong with looking at other opportunities that bring you to that next spot for you.
Definitely. What goes into kind of the pieces of that conversation, right? I walk into, I'm one of your HR business partners, John. Working from the Butler area. I'm commuting about an hour and 15 minutes to work, and somebody says, "Hey, I come in to almost break up with you." Right? What would you want me to share with you? I don't want to burn a bridge inside the Berg, right? That's an important lesson that I was taught years ago. But how can we keep the rapport?
We had younger children, and they were getting involved in sports. They could no longer commute. They wanted to work more from home and have a shorter commute. Plus, they were on a career path which was towards more of a leadership role in human resources. And I fully supported that decision to make sure that they felt comfortable in their path. And I made it okay and helped them through making, whether it's interviewing or a transition plan into their next role. So I see nothing wrong. We all do it in order to advance our careers. When we're in HR, we're recruiting people to leave their jobs to come to work for us. And we have to look at both ways and say, okay, other people, it's okay for people to leave us too, and we'll be okay. So I think it's having those career conversations during your one-on-ones, and that's part of the one-on-one when I have one-on-ones with my team, is asking folks about what are your career aspirations, what do you enjoy doing, what don't you enjoy doing, and hopefully making them feel comfortable about being honest, because it's very hard to say I'm looking for something else, or this is not the right fit for me any longer, according to what my path is.
You're taking a proactive approach to it, and I like how you said, "Hey, we're honest through all of this." Now, John, let's look at this from the other angle, right? I come in and into your office, and we're going to, discontinue working together. What are some of the don'ts for me as the bearer of bad news, and what are some of the don'ts for you as the manager or supervisor receiving the bad news? And the reason I use the term supervisor there is because managers and leaders, they can be superheroes, right? In the first example that you just gave, hey, you're going to invest in me. We're going to take a proactive approach to this. You might not be able to see my cape, but I'm here. I'm going to help fight your battles with you, and not entirely for you, but I'm here. Or we can have super zeros. And that's what I think you're about to share. So what am I saying that are the don'ts, and what are you saying and doing that are also the don'ts in these breakup conversations?
Absolutely. I think going about it, of course, and some of this is obvious, in a negative way, where you heard the term always burn bridges, and saying I'm out of here, or I'm not giving any notice, or I'm not helping with the transition. This is the person that's resigning. Those are all don'ts, and they seem pretty obvious, but sometimes that's what people want to do because they feel like, I haven't been happy and you've never noticed that, and I want to do these things. But it's a very small world, and there you will be connected likely at some point, especially if you're in a certain career or a certain field in the future. And that person's likely going to share the experience with other folks, and their teammates or friends that could affect you in the future. And it's just never a good way. I think the best way is, of course, to put together a transition plan, do it in a very respectful way, give at least 2 weeks notice, if not more, if you can, and help with that transition in any way that you can, whether it's the communication of your termination, or the path and saying, can you hold it for a few days so that I can get some things in place. On the supervisor side, I think telling the person, okay, let's clean out your desk and leave right now. I did not appreciate all these things, or going through a litany of things maybe you were upset with over time. It's not the time to start getting hostile with that person, or trying to make them feel bad about their decision. I also am not a fan of counter offers. I think if the person's made the step to go and get another offer, that's a big time commitment. So that's going from applying to interviewing to going through getting an offer, and then potentially accepting it, and then coming up to resigning. And I think if you then say, I'm going to counter, it's almost a temporary Band-Aid in some cases. And I don't think that's the best path for either side.
Have you ever tried to get a counter offer from an employer in your days, and you said yes or no?
No.
One was never put on the table. Okay.
Well, I won't say that it wasn't put on the table, but I did not accept or offer to have a counter offer to prior employers. I don't feel like it is it's in my best interest. And again, for me, in looking for another job, it would be based on other factors that I'm not having in my current position, or not seeing in my current position.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple names up to this point. We had Michelle, we had Dr. Audrey Morel, we had Linda. Who were some of the individuals that helped guide you, right? Some of your personal board of advisors. Maybe they're still on the personal board today, maybe it's others. But let's talk about, as you're getting into EDMC, Wesco, TrueSense, who are some of the people that you asked for advice and guidance, and maybe only share their first name if you don't want to share the full name. And then we'll get into, some of the things that you asked the different people at different times.
Some of them were, and I can give an example. One is Amy Lynn. Throughout my career, has been very supportive around my searches and around my next steps in my career. There have been times when I've been in transition, and those transitions have been through position eliminations, companies closing, those kind of things. And throughout a career, you're going to run into where it'll be your choice of whether you leave, or maybe the company's choice through company closing, making some changes, moving, relocate, or requiring a relocation. And Amy Lynn has always been supportive of, let me see what I can do to help with your search, and also give you some advice on whether it's interviewing tips or resume review, those kind of things. I think another person who actually has seen me grow through the PHRA is Phyllis. She's been a true mentor. I think you probably know her, of course. And she's, since the time I started, which was on leading the classes. So after I took the classes with the PHRA, I taught them for 3 years, became a board member, then eventually the president. And Phyllis was the president at that time, and really guided me and mentored me through my leadership journey through the PHRA and post that. And now she's giving back, having gone from more of a corporate side to more of a consulting. And that's a career path that I'm also interested in eventually in the future. I think, Vince, through his journey, also having been in transition and really focused on what he enjoys doing, has brought my perspective to be, you have to really enjoy what you're doing. And that includes the blend of personal life plus the blend of work life. And he really showed me that work-life balance and the importance of that.
But if you can do it with a bourbon, some bocce, and a cigar, that's not the end of the world either, right?
That's right. He has taught those things, and they're helpful, and they help translate into other opportunities and situations within your life.
All right. I got that one. Just taking a couple more notes over here. So, John, as we start to think about some of the other aspects of your career map, what are some of the other achievements or accomplishments or, education? You mentioned some of the certs along the way. Did you go back for any continued education, or have you thought about some continued education, whether it's a full degree or some follow-on certs beyond SPHR and the SHRM SCP?
I haven't pursued any further education other than, the Harvard Business School, which was a program that we offered at GAI.
Yeah.
You're programmed and you get a certificate at the end. I think it's through SHRM, through the PHRA, through other organizations, you develop your sense of HR knowledge through those organizations, plus legal firms and everything else. I think the leadership training has really been through my mentors and through on-the-job training. And obviously education is extremely important as you advance in your career. And I think, what I've done is ask for those opportunities and receive them to do things like I've mentioned before, accounting and operations management, so that I had that hands-on experience with them. And I think it's important not only to have the education, but the hands-on side. I also just last week spoke at the University of Pittsburgh for one of their business fraternities about my career path and about my experience at Pitt and about networking. And I've done that several times. And having those I call them more enrichment activities, where it's not only me providing information and knowledge, it's me gaining it from the audience I have and answering their questions and being able to help them. I have a mentoring meeting this afternoon with somebody I had actually met through the Pittsburgh Sports League, and I'm heavily involved with that. And that's some personal activities, but that person reached out to me because they're in transition, they want some help. And those types of things where you're giving back based on all the people that have helped you through your career, I think is so important, and hopefully a takeaway that everybody has from our conversation today.
I love the emphasis on the job training. I don't know that we give that enough time or space to really drive it home, particularly whenever we're early career and maybe even into the mid career. It's no, just tell me I'm ready for it. John, promote me already. Come on, what are we waiting for? I've been here for 3 weeks. Why am I not, senior manager? Come on, this is absolutely ridiculous. But I think that bit of going through, and I look at it from at least an annual cycle, right? To be in a role, there's so much stuff that happens in a 12-month piece. So as we look forward to some of the other skills to develop and maybe some other achievements, what might be on some of those future aspects of the career map for you? You mentioned some of the consulting piece. I think there's a wealth of knowledge and some remarkable people in our community that can bounce ideas off one another. But maybe talk a little bit more on some of the skills and the achievements piece.
Part of skills are being flexible and open to change. Change is going to happen no matter what. And I think through my career of having that emphasis on change prepares me for what my next step is. I'm looking to stay in the top leadership role for quite a few years. But as I look towards, what does the end game look like? Definitely on the consulting side and using my HR knowledge, whether it be through outplacement consulting for people in transition or human resources consulting. While I was in transition, I did those things. I really, really enjoyed them. And those are skill sets that are different than corporate America, because you have to be able to manage your time, and this, Pete, too, managing your time and being able to have change constantly, big projects all at once, then nothing, but you're also dealing with things like marketing and finance and IT and all those aspects of a consulting business. So those are some of the skills that I think you really have to get while you're in the work environment too. So if you have opportunities to work with the marketing team, work with the IT team, get involved in budgeting, and not just for your own department, but how it works. I think those are all important skills that cannot hurt you, but will help you as you try to transition to that next path for your career. Some of the achievements that I've done is really where I got through my career. My leadership opportunities came through the nonprofit work, through the PHRA. Actually, I would not have been able to move into a leadership role without my experience being on the board and then eventually president through the PHRA, because you can't get it just automatically. Nobody's going to give it to you. But that nonprofit expertise gave me, you're responsible for IT, responsible for management of employees, responsible for the budget, a board of directors. All of those things happen when you're in the nonprofit or the world of volunteerism. And those things can really help you in your career as you progress professionally and on the personal side.
Okay. For growth. So at this point, John, we start to talk a little bit about, you. And I'm going to brag a bit that you've been so kind to be a buddy and a mentor to me throughout the PHRA program, and to others who have come up and said things to me over the years, right, that I've been part of the community there. And you even mentioned another mentoring conversation this afternoon, taking time for the recording of this podcast. How in the world do you make time for mentorship, you guiding others and you connecting with the people on your personal board? You got a million things going on, 1,500 employees around the globe, right? How do you make time for this?
It's definitely kind of a little cliche, but a work-life balance. I learned, early on that, I was 100% focused on work and nothing on the personal side on work. Learned that that's not going to work. So then I started to get involved with activities and all of these other things. And time management is really important. But I make time. Last night, I had a kickball game at 9:50. I've played kickball for 22 years. I love it, and I make time in my schedule for that. So we played, and that's something that's really important to me. I built a house 10 years ago. That took a lot of time in maintaining that house, and my landscaping and gardening are all things I make time for. I'm a season ticket holder for Pitt football, and I go to a lot of Pitt events and games, and those are things that I make time for, family and friends, all of that. And it's balancing it, making sure, every night is something scheduled. Crafton Borough, being the president of the borough, takes 2 to 4 hours a day on working on items for Crafton Borough.
Wow.
And it's important because it's for our local community and making change and impacts in the community, but it's all about a work-life balance. When you're at work, you're getting things done, you're focused on work. Then when you don't have work, you have things planned for that time. And that's just what gives me energy. It's not for everyone. Some people may enjoy, just being relaxed or being, at home, but that's okay. But I think a lot of it is getting involved as much as you want and driving. It goes back to my original quote, you only get one chance in life, and make the most of it. And I live by that every single day, to say, hey, I want to make sure to enjoy it, because you never know when your last day will be.
It's one of my favorites as well. Life is what you make of it. Why not make it great, and why not do it together? Make it a little bit easier together. I had a question I was going to ask, and it just started to escape me there. Oh, here it is. So, from John's opinion, right? What if I set aside an hour or two on every other Monday afternoon for mentoring? You think that's okay for me as a manager to almost have open office hours on the clock for mentoring from a business perspective? Is it okay for me to do that while I'm, in my 9 to 5 windows?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm doing it today. Like I said, I have my call today at 2 o'clock. And that's, I think, so important. I think as a manager, remember a lot of times you are doing a lot of work. And I don't mean that in a way, and maybe a better word is you're not doing a lot of the task work. You obviously have tasks that you need to do, but your team is doing that. So the importance of your role is being there to mentor, to guide, and lead your team to
Yeah.
where they can be successful. So having that opportunity for whether it's mentoring, for one-on-ones, for just open conversations with people on your team or outside of your team is so extremely important as a leader. For a leader to be able to do that is not only a way to give back, but it's for skill development, it's to help people through their career journeys. And I see nothing wrong with that while you're working or even when you're not working. I think those things are just so important.
I'm with you. I agree. Last question here, John. It's around the value you see in this Pathfinders methodology, right? Of early career, mid career, maybe even some into the late career, right? But putting together that career map with those different aspects of it and building out your personal board of advisors. Where do you see that really helping out on the individual side, but also on the organizational side?
It's a great point. You don't realize the importance of that. So if I looked at myself when I was 22, I didn't think of those things. I needed a mentor to take me and say, here's what you need to do, because it's not just going to flow itself. You have to plan it and you have to put these things together. I didn't realize it until, like I said, Michelle Ferris Reese now mentioned to me, here's what you need to do. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm enjoying life how it is, and I'm enjoying my career how it is. She's like, no, you need to put these things together. One is to get involved. One is to put together the career map. And the third thing is to get a group of people that really are your supporters. And that's what started for me, when I was around 25, 26 years old, to really develop those things. And it's not going to go perfect. And you have to be flexible, and it has to be an ever flowing. So that's why I think whatever you put in place for your career map, your future, has to have flexibility and the ability to change based on whatever happens in your personal and professional life, because those are sometimes things that you can't control. And it can't be like, oh no, I lost my job, there goes my whole career, there goes my personal life, there goes everything. Nope, I've got a map and I have my advisors and I have everybody there that can guide me to my next step, whatever it would be.
Amen to that. John, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick recap here with some of the notes that I took, and then we'll invite you to close us out on this episode of Pathfinders today. So again, thanks everybody for listening in to John Oliverio, the aspirational physical therapist, rerouted by job shadowing, led him to a career at Ames Department Store for 9 years. Then while he was there, University of Pittsburgh, some of the cool classes with Dr. Audrey Morell, blending together psychology, business, and HR. And the reminder to being true to yourself and what you want and what you need. Moving may not be for me. So all the listeners, make sure you think about that as you're going through the professional journey. Nicholson Construction, shout out to Michelle for the PHRA connection, and then Linda pulling you up and over. Not getting stuck, reminding us that change is good. Thank you for the do's and the don'ts of professional breakups, and that the proactive one-on-ones can help us avoid some of those unnecessary or regrettable turnover, if you will. You shared that you're not really a fan of the last chance counteroffer, and gave a couple of other shout outs to your own PBA with Amy Lynn, the Phyllis from PHRA, who was one of the guides in the PHRA to your path to association president. And then Vince, the master of bringing people and smiles together. Building out your career map. I like this one a lot, John, with the emphasis of OJT, on-the-job training, and learning from others, and filling it with some of the external education and certifications. Get those other skills onto your career map early and often, but definitely before you hit the final home stretch. You mentioned some of the helpful ones like time management, always being change ready, budgeting, IT, accounting, and marketing. Definitely emphasize marketing from my own entrepreneurial journeys, how much that can make it or break it. Great reminder that leadership in a nonprofit role can be a springboard stretch assignment as we grow professionally in our day job, if you will. Mentoring on the clock is okay, and it's encouraged in many instances. And we need to take time to invest in our people. You wrap things up with, the stiff arming our mentors with our early career mindset of no free time attitude can be tricky to overcome. So thank you to those mentors out there that were patient for folks that may have been stubborn in those earlier days. And thank you for the patience and persistence. So wrapping it up with our 22 years veteran kickball player, 30 years veteran in the HR space, and lover of University of Pittsburgh football, that the team is still undefeated at the time of this recording. John, thank you for joining us today.
Great. And hopefully the team will be undefeated many months later. But yes, thank you, Peter. I think, to wrap things up, I think it's just so important to be able to give back and realize that we're all on this journey, and we all have different paths, and nobody's path is perfect, and it's going to change. So you can plan as much as you want, but you are the driver of that path. So if you're looking for your manager or other folks to drive that path for you, it won't happen. You have to be the driver, and then use all the help that's around you to move it forward. But if you try to do it, if you try to wait for others to do it for you, it won't happen, and you may be disappointed at the end.
Thanks, John. Thank you all. Please comment one of your or two of your takeaways, and let's thank John in the comments as we get this posted. Have a good day. Talk to you all soon.